Someone recently asked me to see what it would cost to own a $500,000 piece of property. And so instead of doing the analysis in private, I thought I'd do it on here, see what y'all think. So here we have the spreadsheet that I use. I've used it many times, and we'll just go through and fill it out for this person. They have great credit. Their loan type is going to be conventional. We'll skip that one for now. House price, $500,000. It's going to be a brand new construction, so keep that in mind for later. Down payment, they're going to put down 10%. So we'll enter that there. Their interest rate is going to be about what it is today, which I saw on a billboard. Interest rates are around 6.9%, which is a pretty penny. HOA, it's going to be a brand new construction. Rarely is there a neighborhood these days that where developers will put up new construction without implementing an HOA. So we'll put in $50 for that. That's conservative. Monthly insurance, it's a single family home, so let's call it 70, should be fine. Annual taxes, let's assume $3,000. Monthly utilities, let's skip that one for now. Monthly repairs, let's call that 0, just because I just want to make sure you guys can see that. Monthly repairs, 0, just because it is new construction and everything is hopefully under warranty for at least a few years. Monthly improvements, let's leave that at 0 as well. You can't really improve much upon a new constructed home. So, looking at the scorecard that I made, the first year cost to own this home, we have principal, interest, property taxes, home insurance, mortgage insurance, because they're putting down less than 20%, mortgage insurance is going to apply. HOA, repairs, improvements, and utilities, we'll leave those blank. So just their base mortgage payment, which is what the mortgage companies are going to look at when they see, can this person afford this loan? Base mortgage payment is going to be $34.46 per month. That's pretty hefty. $500,000 homes didn't used to cost this much on a monthly basis. And if we look at it on a yearly basis, that's around $41,000. So let's assume then that, and I like to look at this from this perspective as well. I don't like to just look at the raw numbers and say, okay, it's going to be $3,446. I like to say, what if they put down more money? What would their return be on that money? So as we see, right now they're paying $41,000 per year. Let's say they had 10% more. Let's say they had another $50,000 that they could put at this thing. That would get them to a 20% down payment. That would mean that their mortgage insurance would go to 0 because they're putting down at least 20%. And with these high interest rates, let's see what that could get them. So let's assume they had another $50,000, so we'll change that to 20%. Voila. Looks like their payment is around $3,000. So what was it before? It was $34.46. What is it now? $3,000. So they're saving around $443 per month, which if we annualize that, I'll just do this quickly here. 443, let's call it. So $5,316 every year in savings. So that extra $50,000 is really making them, let's see, divided by 50,000. It's making them around, 10.6% return, essentially. That's a pretty good return. If they have an extra $50,000, that would be great. I would advise them to do that unless they think that their stocks are going to outperform 10.6%, and that is an annual number. 10.6%, it's not going to fluctuate. Clean that up real quick. So that's interesting. I think That would be good for them. That's what I would do personally. Down here, you might have noticed we have another little section called 30 years later. So what I like to look at is two sections. We'll go back up to here, total rents and total expense. So total rents up here in this little box. Let's say this property can rent out for $2,500. Well, we see that total rents $2,500, total expenses $3,000. Even at the higher interest rate, at the lower down payment, $3,000, they're still in the hole by around $500 a month. That's not great. That's around $6,000 a year. Now, can they pull that out of their own pocket? Can their earnings make the difference? If they rent it out for $2,500, maybe the tenant pays utilities. They're left with $6,000 in the hole. So, is that worth it? Well, you got to look long term. So I made this little section here, 30 years later. So when the house is paid off, because all this is based on a 30-year loan, when the house is paid off, yeah, this is interesting. So it's based on these assumptions down here, which I can change. I can change anything in the yellow, and everything else will react. So this little long-term assumptions box down here, annual inflation 2%. Is that going to really happen? Well, who knows? For a long time it was 1.7%. For a few years it jumped up to 10%. Long-term 2%. That's conservative. Let's go with it. Marginal tax rate. So what are these rents? The difference between the rents and the expenses, or the net income, what is that going to be taxed at? Let's keep this at 33%. Again, these are all assumptions. None of this is fully calculated out, but it plays into what we're going to do next. Annual real estate appreciation. Real estate appreciates by around 3 to 5% per year on average. So we'll go with the average of 4%. Management fee. Let's assume that this person is going to self-manage their property. Otherwise, I've seen, fees in excess of 10 to 12%, which no one likes that. Cash reinvestment rate. So for all the net income that I put aside year to year on this rental, once it starts breaking even, if I were to invest it right away in the stock market, what do I think the stock market would return me on average long term? That's going to be this 10%. And then annual rent increase. What am I bumping up the rents at every year on average? And in my city, for the last 20 plus years, it's been roughly 3.5%. So we'll go with that number here. So jumping back up, $30 years later, that means that, assuming they put down 20%, the principal pay down over that period, or the amount of principal that tenant is paying off every month for the next 30 years, is going to accumulate to $400,000. Price appreciation, or the amount of value that property is appreciating by, remember 4%? Yeah, it's going to appreciate by an additional $1.12 million. And then net cash in or out. So remember, once they break even, which would probably be in a while, but that money is going to start appreciating. That investment is going to start rolling in 10%. Let's say they make $500 in year 10. Well, they invest that in year 10. That's going to be invested for around 20 years. So that $500 is going to turn into quite a chunk of change. And then in year 11, let's say it's $800. Actually, we can look at it right now. I built this view into the sheet that will show us something funky's going on. I'll just scroll over manually. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, So year 6, they're still in the hole. So they start off negative 6,000, negative 5,000, negative 4,000. Year 4, negative 3,000. Year 2, negative 2. Year 1, oops, I think I did the years wrong. Anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Year 7, they finally break even, $177. In 23 years, that's going to be $1,600 if they invest the $177 in the stock market at 10% for those 23 years. The next year, it's going to be $975, which invested for 22 years, it's going to be that. See what I'm doing? So by year 10, they're going to be making $2,600 off of this property, assuming they don't refinance between now and then. And that's going to be equal to about $18,000 in 20 years from now. So all the way down, and year 29, assuming that we start in year 0, year 29, they're going to make $28,000, which is great, and the property's not even paid off yet. Assuming they invest that year, it's going to still be worth the exact same. So that's the methodology there. And so over the 30-year period, that's going to equate to $656,000. Adding all of those up, we get $2.178 million is how much that house will have increased this person's net worth by. So that is 2.178 plus the 100,000 that they put down equals, 2.278 million. Is that worth it? Seems like a pretty big number. It is 30 years though, and it is 7+ years of 7 years without a profit. And in fact, if we go over and look at it again, we can see that it's not all sunshine and roses, because really add up all the losses, and then you can start seeing where did my sum button go? Well, we can do the rough math and say 11, 16, 21, 22. They're going in the hole $22,000 before they start climbing their way out. So it might be another 5, 6, 7 years before they actually break even cash-wise. Does that make sense? Let me know down in the comments if what I'm saying makes sense or if it doesn't, and I'm happy to go over it in more detail. So long story short, is this property a good deal? Well, that all depends. Obviously, there's the hope that you can refinance a few years down the road. What I would do is just play around with a little bit more and see, okay, what if I have another 5% to put down? So 25%. Looking at that 2.2 million, what does that become if I put down an extra 5%? Well, it goes up by another 100,000 within 30 years. What happens if I only put down 5%? It goes from 2.277 down to, shy of 2. So really, putting down $25,000 is going to yield me a whole lot less because of how high the interest rates are than putting down 10-20% more, and that's why interest rates are important. So this spreadsheet here, the long-term assumptions, the purchase details, the monthly inputs, I like to just dink around and see what makes the most sense for people, what would be the best bang for their buck, and then help them compare properties. I've used this for myself, I've used it for my family, I've used it for my friends, and it's been a great tool to show what the trade-offs are and how to best potentially allocate assets. I hope this has been helpful for you. Let me know in the comments, and I'm planning to make this spreadsheet and others like it available for you to download if you want, so you can dink around with it and make the best educated decisions with your life-changing purchases. So yeah, stick around. subscribe if you want to keep in touch.